Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Of course, back here with Jarrett. Got a cool video we're gonna do. Gonna give some behind the scenes of us building a successful brand. We're gonna kind of keep it, of course, cannabis focused, citizen stash. But first things first, Jarrett, how are you?
Doing great, thanks, Jason. Nice spring day and enjoying the weather as it turns to summer.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, they opened golf in Ontario. I'm happy, even though I suck. I'm happy.
Baby steps, baby steps.
Yeah, that's it. Well, here we go. So, yeah, wherever you want to kind of kick it off from, we are getting questions. So, building a successful brand, and would love to
Mm,
kind of, of course, let you take the reins and kind of, walk us through kind of how you guys have built a successful brand.
sure. I mean, brands and brand net recognition is going to be, key for success, in the cannabis industry as it gets formed. And I often introduce, Experion as we're best known as Citizen Stash. That is our consumer brand, and quite frankly, it is a significant, major part of our company. And the end of the day, how we look at it, Jason, is we are a CPG or a consumer packaged good industry. And since we can't directly market to our end consumer or our user, at least with the regulations in Canada, therefore the product really must speak for itself. So ultimately, product quality and a consistent experience are the best and really the only ways you can kind of build a cannabis brand. And that builds, trust with the consumer. And as you know, trust is everything about brands. I'm sure you go to Starbucks and you're going to have a coffee. You know exactly what you're going to get. It's the same thing every time, and you trust that Starbucks is going to deliver. And so that's kind of how we approached our brand a bit: is how do we get the trust of our customer, and that's just by quality and consistency. But as you know, the problem with cannabis plants and flower is it's a living, breathing plant, right? And it generally does not like to give a consistent outcome. So the challenge is how do you offer a consistent craft premium product, not only within batch to batch, within your own operations, but how do you scale that to be able to support a national brand and keep that consistency in cannabis? Well, the answer really is, and how we looked at it is, you just got to start with the basics. So what we did was we literally kind of reverse engineered what the experience of the consumer is going to be. And it became quite evident that we just kind of followed your five senses. And we literally did this. We actually pretended we were consumers, and we looked at a jar and then we opened the jar. And so we kind of, like I said, used the five senses. The first thing you need to do is, what do you see? So for us to build a brand and get that trust in the customer, what you want to see is perfect. So we put in big, nice nodes, nothing small, just like you visually, you're wowed. Then the next thing, and we kind of noticed this, people did, was they just smelled it. So we wanted to make sure the nose, the product in there had good nose, a good experience for the way you smelled the product. And then everyone touched it. So we wanted to make sure it was sticky, fresh. And then they ultimately rolled it and tasted it for the actual taste of the product, and then gave the experience. So how we built the brand really was to kind of reverse engineering of those five senses. And that's how we could build consistency quite quickly in the industry. Although the plant can be finicky, as long as you had the sense, the smell, the touch, as long as those were consistent every time, and then the experience offered something consistent, that built trust in the industry. And that's how we kind of then started building a brand quite quickly in the industry. It was really just a sensory experience that became a philosophy in the company. How we touched it, how we package it, how we stored it, how we offered it. We kind of just surrounded that about the senses and just made sure we did that time and time again. And so that is really how we looked at building a brand. It's been successful because people, appreciate basically as a consumption product that you actually look at all those things and understand it. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we did. And of course, then how you get around the scale and the batch to batch, it's all about your genetics, making sure it can produce a very consistent and reliable product. And the way we scale the product is quite unique. We actually can do that through various partners that can duplicate that product quite quickly and offer a consistent experience to be able to, support a national brand. So that's kind of how we approached it, and that's kind of how we kind of got successful in there, and that's kind of how it birthed the kind of philosophy of the company in our branding methods.
It's very interesting. I'll lead this into a question, but you talk about the experience, and also it's funny, like about the smell, the touch, the everything else. You have a lot of people talk about the packaging, in general being important in kind of the cannabis industry. What's your kind of quick feedback? A lot of people say, "Oh, a successful brand starts with great packaging." You had some people say that. What's your kind of take on that comment?
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, people are always trying to reinvent and be a little bit, differentiate themselves as best they can. Because we're so limited in how we can differentiate ourselves in certain ways, packaging is one of those things we can do. So absolutely, we are limited by the types of package we can offer. It has to be kind of child proof. It has to have certain labels on it. You can't brand too much on it. So the packaging becomes quite diluted, if you will, on what you can and can't do in the market. But I believe, you have to have something that is very friendly, user friendly, sustainable. And if it can be used a little bit to differentiate yourself, that is one way you can enhance your packaging and your brand by doing that. So I don't know if you notice our Citizen Stash logo kind of looks like kind of a round with a square. And one of our things we want to do next year is actually have our jar represent our avatar. And that way our package can actually start representing what some of your branding is as well. That could be a differentiator. But at the end of the day, I still think though, if you're trying to brand a premium product, it doesn't matter if you put it in a $5 glass jar or a 50-cent piece of plastic. It's the actual experience from beginning to end and how you actually can experience that from the five senses is what ultimately helps you brand.
Yeah. Look, interesting. At the end of the day, make a good product, make a good experience, and everything else you can kind of figure out. Interesting. Anything else? I guess successful brand, and if someone came to you and said, "Okay, if you're going to make a new brand, would you do it the same way? Would you, hey, this is going to be the experience, backtrack it?" Just curious. And then, is there anything you learned in doing Citizen Stash? You're like, this was a little misstep that will be a great story, but now obviously you guys have learned from it. Curious.
Sure. I mean, we were fortunate enough to actually launch one brand and stand behind it. I see a lot of cannabis companies that have 5, 10, 15 brands. They're trying to launch them all in parallel. And you get really kind of, again, diluted on what do you do well? Like, what are you trying to do in there? So, if I was going to launch again, I wouldn't kind of change our approach. I would still kind of do a singular, strong brand, stand behind something and get really good and well known on that. That doesn't mean to say, though, we're not looking at maybe a sister brand or a family brand that is maybe outside a little bit of Citizen Stash, and maybe there'd be a secondary brand that we launch under similar kind of values and senses, but maybe it's a different price point or a different larger format or something like that that may segue better in a brand. I guess one of the things we've learned and one of the things I see in the industry is not to make unsubstantiated claims about your product. Don't claim it's premium, but don't then deliver a premium product. So the problem is I see is a lot of people saying it is, but then it's not. And that really breaks the trust and it really kind of fractures the industry a little bit. So what we would do again is just to make sure that what we say is in the cup is actually what's in the cup.
Okay. Interesting. Good. It feels so simple, like you hear people talk about it and you're like, it almost sounds obvious, but so many people seem to do it wrong. Curious, and I wanted to add this, kind of to the end. What have you seen in your opinion? We don't need to name names, but brands that have done something that you're like, wow, that was very questionable at best. Is there anything you would kind of mention or any story that comes right to your head?
I guess just the beginning of launching the industry, when we first kind of started rolling out legal retail, and a lot of people were just buying up product and they were putting basically anything they could. And it was really disappointing to see what people were considering premium. It was really disappointing to see what people were garnishing for price for those products. And that kind of translated to our opportunity was if these people are claiming premium, that what we're going to do is going to seem awesome, which is exactly what happened. So I think, some of the mistake again was people just claiming things that they just had no idea really about. It may seem simple, but that's how you build businesses, Jason, is just keep it simple, build it on business 101, launch a quality product, know what you're talking about, and stand behind it.
Yeah. Well, look, awesome. Like, I appreciate you doing this video. I know we're seeing this question out there, and I know if anyone has any direct questions, obviously for the company or Citizen Stash, we'd love to go into more detail. But Jarrett, thanks for joining. This is a cool little video. I think a good little angle, and a lot of stuff that people don't get to experience. So, thank you so much for kind of giving that behind the scenes, the behind the curtain look.
Perfect. Thanks, Jason.